And
Hello and welcome to World Sand Project. I'm the magical sand genie, Shelley Carney.
and I'm the sand flea. For lack of a better, I didn't have anything real quick to come up with.
Maybe a grandpa shark.
Yeah, Grandpa Shark. Toby Younis, thanks for joining us today. We have a couple of letters to read. We do have a really interesting sample for you today, but we're going to talk about the area that it came from. Of course, I want to thank Andy Giles for sending us a sample. But we'll see it in just a minute. Thanks for joining us. So, first things first.
Housekeeping, you want towels?
You want towels because you should never go to the beach, go any place with sand for that matter, without some clean towels. Let me qualify that. Clean towels. Make sure that before the end of today's video, like our video. YouTube likes it when you like our video, and we know of people in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston who like our video. Share it with your family, friends, your neighbors, your business
What about New
associates.
Jersey?
Pardon me. And New Jersey. Yeah, apparently we have somebody in New Jersey that likes our videos. Share it with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your business associates, the entirety of your social network so that we can
Grow the channel.
And last but not least, make sure at some time before the end of the show, is that the little genie thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grow out of their bottles.
Oh, very nice. Very good. Yeah, I like that. You subscribe to our channel, and that way, and also as you subscribe, click on that notifications bell, and that way when we start a live stream or when we schedule a live stream, you'll be immediately informed and
In the know.
And then, of course, there is nothing better than being in the know. And did I set that up?
I did.
Have you got chat?
Yes.
I didn't open my chat window over here. Okay. Yeah, sand marches on. That's right, Tony. Sand marches on. So today we have a sample from the some people call it the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and I'm going to have Shelley read an introduction to it so you can understand why it's referred to as the New Jersey Pine Barrens, but it is also known as the Pinelands National Reserve. So what I would like to do is I'm going to switch over to our window, to our map, and I have something. Oh, I forgot we have some emails. Okay, let's read the emails first.
Alrighty. This email is from Lika Lee. Well, it's actually a comment.
It was a comment, but I wanted you to see it.
And she said, "Hi, Toby and Shelley. Have you ever watched the documentary called Sand Wars? If not, it came out in 2013. It's about the consequences of beach sand mining."
So, Lika, I can tell you that when I first became interested in this problem, I was actually going through YouTube looking for videos with information, with microscopes. And it was about looking through the microscopes, and up pops this microscope, sand under the microscope, and I became fascinated with it. But amongst the list of information that YouTube fed to me, the impressions that YouTube fed to me, there were two others that really took interest. I love TED Talks. And one was the TED Talk by Dennis, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce his last name, the producer and director of Sand Wars. And the other was the TED Talk that was done by Vince Beiser. And they were both on the concept of Sand Wars and the Sand Mafia, et cetera, et cetera. Those two TED Talks were the two that motivated me to take an interest in this and even start a channel. And immediately after that, YouTube offered me the Dennis's video, Sand Wars, which was produced, which is much more comprehensive. And I did purchase it, and I have watched it several times. So yeah, we're very familiar with that. Thanks for bringing it up. So if you guys want to go to YouTube and enter Sand Wars, if you would like to see it, and it's kind of the basis for what we've been talking about on our channel. I think it motivated Vince Beiser to write his book, and it's one of the if you do Sand Wars in YouTube. Well, we have a playlist. Just go to our channel and look at the playlist, and we have all the appropriate videos, including the 2 TED Talks that I referred to. But if you enter Sand Wars, you'll be presented an opportunity to buy Dennis's documentary. It's about an hour long, but it's very comprehensive and very informative, and it gives you a real sense of what's going on in the world regarding sand right now. So thank you for bringing that up, Lika.
All right. Next one is from Lisa Smith. And she says, I just thought you'd like this. And she sent us a link to Facebook Follow Your Legend videos.
Yeah, so here's what she sent. I actually got the video. I'm going to play it here. It's not copyrighted. It's a promotional video, so it's going to be okay. Let me switch over to full screen here. And I'm going to go ahead and play this. And I think she's right. It's kind of cool. Now, I'm going to say I don't want to say they're very expensive. They're relatively expensive in terms of giveaways. But we've spent as much on bears, honestly, over on A Gypsy's Kiss. But I want you to see the video and see what it is and see kind of how they've positioned themselves for this. Let me see. Can you guys hear that? Yeah. There we go.
I mean, it used to be frozen. All of this, it used to be ice when we were like small. Now it doesn't freeze anymore.
So
Reminds me of the bracelets you used to wear.
yeah, the Four Oceans
Last year.
Four Oceans last year. That was my last year. You know how I am.
That was the last
I
year.
still have them. I might put them on again one of these days because I did pay for them. Those aren't. These bracelets are around $24. So here's what I can say to you. I'm probably going to get some for A Gypsy's Kiss. We can use as giveaways. They're expensive giveaways that they're $25 basically, $24.99. But the idea is so cool that I would like to take one, go to our one of our favorite locations, put some sand in, and they use a giveaway. And I think what we'll do, once we get to 1,000 subscribers and we've monetized this channel, we'll start buying these, and maybe once a week, we'll take the sand that someone has sent us, and we'll put it in one of those bracelets, and then we'll give it away the following week. So I just, Lisa is one of our viewers on AGK. She's one of the members in our vault, and she shows up here. I don't know if she can see
No,
it.
Lisa Smith is the one that sent us the sand last week from Del Rey, or the one on the border, the river.
Which Lisa is this? I keep
Lisa
confusing.
Smith.
Oh, okay, Lisa Smith. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I did. I thought this was Lisa.
The other one.
The
Elizabeth.
other,
You're thinking
Elizabeth.
of
Elizabeth. Yeah.
She
Okay.
goes
So
by
Lisa
Lisa.
Smith. I apologize for that. Thank you for thinking of me. I think it's a great idea, and I will take advantage of it. We'll probably
Columbia
start
River, right?
the Columbia River. That's
That's
right.
right.
Washington. On the river between and on the border of Washington and Oregon. So that was last week's,
That-
and we still have
that's
another. We still have another sample of hers that will be playing next week. I wanted to get this one in this week, so I'll play hers next week. From the river that feeds the Columbia. But I will get some of these eventually, and what we'll do is we'll take some of the sand that we've collected, that people have collected and sent to us, and we'll put it in that, and we'll use it as a giveaway, because I think it's cool. I think it was a really cool idea. And Lisa, thank you for thinking of me for that. All right, so I'm going to open up the other screen, and I've asked Shelley to read some of the information. It's very short, but I want you to... I was really impressed with what we were dealing with here, because I thought it was just another, like a beach, right? What you discover is, if you do any kind of research into these areas, they have more, there's more to them than just being a sandy place. So I thought it was important for us to kind of preface this particular program with some information on what is referred to, what the locals refer to as the Pine Barrens. And in this paragraph that Shelley's going to read, it explains why it's called the Pine Barrens. But since it's also now the Pinelands National Reserve. Okay, so you go ahead and do that while I change window shots here.
All right. And this is spelled Barrens, Barrens, as in desolate, rather than barren like a title, a royalty title of some
Yeah,
sort, which
right.
is when I first heard it, that's what I
Oh, the Pine
imagined in my
Barrens. Yeah.
mind.
Okay.
The Baron of the Pines.
Yeah.
Okay, Pine Barrens in New Jersey. The Pine Barrens, also known as the Pinelands or simply the Pines, is a heavily forested area of coastal plain stretching across more than 7 counties of New Jersey. The name Pine Barrens refers to the area's sandy, acidic, nutrient-poor soil, which is unusual for New Jersey because it's the Garden State.
And it's even more interesting well, keep reading because it kind of explains what's going on.
Although European settlers could not cultivate their familiar crops there, the unique ecology of the Pine Barrens supports a diverse spectrum of plant life, including orchids and carnivorous plants. The area is also notable for its populations of rare pygmy pitch pines and other plant species that depend on the frequent fires of the pine barrens to reproduce. The sand that composes much of the area's soil is referred to by the locals as sugar sand. The Pine Barrens remains mostly rural and undisturbed despite its proximity to the sprawling metropolitan cities of Philadelphia and New York City, in the center of the very densely populated Boston-Washington corridor on the eastern seaboard. The Pine Barrens territory helps recharge the 17 trillion-gallon Kirkwood-Cohansey Aquifer, containing some of the purest water in the United States. As a result of all these factors, in 1978, Congress passed legislation to designate 1.1 million acres, which is 4,500 kilometers squared,
Right.
of the Pine Barrens as the Pinelands National Reserve, the nation's first national reserve, to preserve its ecology.
And there's a couple of important things there. Number one, that aquifer that they're talking about, that 17 trillion gallons, is basically water for around 1 million people, and it's purified water. And part of it is the fact that it is filtered through this, what they refer to as sugar sand. And you'll see in just a moment why they refer to it as sugar sand. This is the area that we're talking about, that area of New Jersey. The Pine Barrens take up approximately 1/3 of the state. And of the 1.1 million square acres, acres in the reserve, approximately 800,000 are pure reserve. But they're constantly being encroached upon by developers. What was really funny and what ended up turning this into a reserve was that back in 1968 and 1969, there was a plan amongst Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and Connecticut to establish a large airport on the property to take the pressure off the airports in not Pittsburgh, but Philadelphia and Newark, New Jersey, and they were going to turn the Pine Barrens into a big airport and would have ruined all these natural preserves. They found other solutions, but again, the 1974 law that was passed was based on a law that was passed in New Jersey to protect it, and then it became a national reserve, and it's the first entity of its type in the National Park Service to be referred to as a national reserve. So there have been others since then, but it was the first one. So as we look at it, you can see it's on the East Coast. So this is our second East Coast sand. This is the exact location where the sample was taken based on the GPS coordinates in the photographs that Gary sent me. And it's near this lake area. This area right here is a park and recreation area. There's a camping area right up here, a campground. So it's very active when it comes to natural things like that. And there is a lot more water than you imagine. Imagine someplace that has a lot of sand and is called the Pine Barrens. And also, you can download this. This is the official U.S., let's see, it would be the U.S. Department of Agriculture, is the Department of Interior, National Park Service, the Pinelands National Reserve official map, and I put it as big as I could on this. So if you want to take a look at it and go there, I have actually I didn't think about this, but I've actually been on the bike trails up there. I took a trip up there once and was on some of the bike trails, and they have both. They have three categories of bike trails. The first is a paved bike trail. The second is an improved dirt road, and then the third is what effectively is a mountain bike trail. Now they're relatively flat, certainly not like going through the Rocky Mountains because the Pine Barrens are relatively flat. But you do need, for those trails, you do need a mountain bike. I went up just to ride the paved trails. And the other thing here is you can see the size of the Pine Barrens in comparison to the state of New Jersey. It's taken up a significant part of New Jersey. And of course, for those of you that live there, you know New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the United States. So there are a lot of people, a lot of developers who would like to get their hands on this land. And so far, they've managed to protect it. So the first three photos are the photos that that Andy sent me. And I said Gary, I meant Andy. That Andy sent me from the location at which he took the sample. And as you can see, it very much looks like pine barrens. And they have certain kinds of pines there. They allow fires to occur. And the reason is the fires in this area, it's so densely populated with foliage, with trees, that the fires are necessary in order to promote regrowth and the continuation of growth. But as you can see, that's a very sandy location. And that's what I was talking about when I was talking about what I would call an unimproved road. That's very much unlike the trails. This is the unimproved road. I was on a bike trail that was actually paved and right inside the beginning. This is another view from the same location. He pointed in different directions in order to get the photos that he sent us. And this is the last one with the dog. He didn't mention his puppy's name, but he was with him that day. And these roads go throughout the Barrens. So you can take this road, go to the edge of the Barrens, get on here, take this road off, go off onto trails, and you can do it in a four-wheel drive vehicle. They recommend a four-wheel drive vehicle. I suppose you could do the harder packed ones with a two-wheel drive vehicle, but you can see that's pretty mushy sand. And it's got a very nice white color to it, and you'll see as we look at it under the microscope why they call it sugar sand. So these are some other pictures that I downloaded from the area on Google Earth. Some of them had what did they call it? Citations, individuals. Some of them didn't. But as you can see, it's got, it's not just pine barrens. It's got water that feeds the aquifer. It's got lily pad ponds. So there's a lot more water there than you might imagine, as I said, by something called pine barrens. And they have lengths of water that are kayakable, for lack of a better way to describe them. So you wouldn't be kayaking on a small pond. You'd be kayaking along a river or stream like this one. And the water is, there is water that's in constant motion like a stream, but because it's so flat, it moves at a relatively, what I'd call, sleepy pace. And this was a picture done by John.
Lazy river?
Lazy river. Good one. A lazy
Don't be
river.
a lazy river.
Don't be a lazy river. This was a picture that John Jensen had posted to Google Earth. This is an overview. It's actually a drone shot of the area, and you can see it's very, very flat. So this is the sample that we're going to be looking at today. Those are sand grain size objects. But let me tell you what I found. I actually did the same thing with this. I ran through. So we know that sand is defined as not larger than 2 millimeters, grains that are not larger than 2 millimeters. You can see it's very light colored and very consistent in color, but I ran it through the screen, the 2 millimeter screen, and started pulling out some of these objects. So I actually have two containers, one with the fine sand, the 2 millimeter sand, and then I've got another container with the objects that are just a little bit bigger. And then I've got this in a petri dish, which is what we're going to use when we see the polarizing microscope. So let me give you a precursor of what you see. I did run the magnet through it and got 0 in the way of results, which indicates there's no magnetite, no iron. Although at one time this was an area where they mined what's referred to as bog iron. I don't know the exact definition, but it got cheaper to mine it out of Pennsylvania soon after that, after the 1800s. But they did use bog iron. There was no indications of magnetic material, including magnetite, or other magnetic materials in the sand sample. So wide angle view, the little brown pieces are wood. As you can see, it has a very consistent color to it in terms of the crystalline, that's of course quartz. There is some yellow in there, which I haven't looked at enough to know whether it is quartz with a what do they call it? Impurities in it, pigment, the pigment of impurities, or a feldspar. There's a couple of pieces to me that look like chalcedony, and I'll show you those as we get into the bigger ones, but it's probably just a variation of feldspar. That's just a little bit closer, and now you can see why they refer to it as sugar sand. It almost looks like sugar crystals, except that it doesn't have that crystalline sugar. These of course, have gone through the process of weathering, and so they've got those rounded edges on. I just focused on the little piece of wood just to keep me focused. Also, I noticed that each of the crystals, each of the grains of sand had these little black things on them. I haven't investigated those any further. You can't see them up until you're pretty close. Now, this was the second sample. I told you that I ran the sand through a 2mm screen and pulled out the objects in the sand in the sample that were larger, and this is where those came. And you can see they are just larger forms of what we already see, very white. This is the piece that I thought had kind of a chalcedony look, chalcedony look to it. If not, then it's probably a feldspar, and I'm sure one of our folks who are geologists in the room can tell us one way or the other. So these white, the ones that are not translucent, that are opaque, are probably just white quartz in the same way that these are the translucent quartz. And again, that's a final close-up looking at it. So let's go to the microscope, and I've got it set up so that we're going to look at the two. It's got kind of a bluish tint to it because this thing doesn't know how to auto white, or what do they call it? White balance. Mm-hmm. So this is far look away, and as you can see here, a lot of the white, a couple of the black objects, but those objects are not magnetite because the magnet didn't pick up on them. Some gray objects that are just other forms of quartz. I noticed some pink objects in there, as well as the yellow and the orange. Nothing in the green-blue range. It's over on the light color spectrum of minerals and rocks. So let's zoom in just a little bit more. So that's
very blue-green.
Yeah, now it'll start getting, as we get closer, it starts using the LED lights. So you can see some of these objects here are the black objects. There's a broad variety of colors in it. I just really thought it was cool because there were so much. I see some, not only the translucent and opaque quartz, but I also see this kind of pinkish quartz down here and the yellow quartz down here, and this very almost orange quartz. So I'm sure some of our geologists in the room can tell us. Is Rick in the room?
He's not saying anything if he is.
Okay. So let me zoom back out because I had one shot that was really interesting because it had like all three colors very nicely. Let me see if I can find that. Like there. So and there over on the right, you can see one that has a slight greenish tint to it as well. That's the first time in this sample I've seen any kind of a tint on that end of the color spectrum. So here's the variety of samples. The variety of sand grains that you see all in one shot. There's the gray, the translucent quartz, the more opaque quartz right here, and then the yellow, and as I said over here, the green. So there's a little pink one right there. So it's got, but again, on the lighter end of the spectrum. When we go in, let me get one more shot that's kind of full magnification here. And again, what you'll see are those black spots, and let me get that. Let's see if we can move that pink one in the shot. So pretty good and interesting, good looking. I like the variety, And let me see if I can pick up one of those green ones, because I don't know what it is about green that fascinates me so much. Right there. That's green. That's not yellow, right? I'm looking for agreement here.
Chartreuse. I would call that.
Chartreuse. Yeah. Definitely not yellow.
Well, yellow is a part of chartreuse.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
There's green.
Here we go. That's very nice. So this one, because it's kind of pointing up at us, we're going to have a very small depth of field, right? So we got to start with the top and work our way down. And it does have kind of a green tint to it. It also has those microworm marks in it. So I wonder if that spent some time in the ocean. See those right there on these right here? This right here, right there. Those are all microworms. So it looks like it probably spent some time in the ocean, because that's where theirs comes from. And then what I liked about, I noticed that on this one, this is more of the translucent quartz, and it has a blue inclusion in it. So how cool is that? Okay, so these are the sand grains that fell through that qualify as sand grains. It fell through the 2 millimeter screen. So let's slide over to the ones that didn't make it through the screen, and let's see if we can see any significant differences there.
Did he say microworms?
I did say microworms. Little tiny worms. I'm not making that up. So let me go back out here and we'll take a look at some of the bigger ones, the ones that were bigger than 2 millimeters. And what I found interesting about these is they were, I don't want to say uniformly white in the white range, because there are some greens and some pinks. But I found one set here. This is the one that I thought, to me, looked like chalcedony. And I'm not sure what family it comes from, but it's either a jasper. It doesn't look like a quartz, is I guess what I'm trying to say. But we're now getting into, rocks, objects that have more than one mineral in them. That's where they get the color from. But generally speaking, I would call that, there's your standard quartz crystal, and then in addition to that. But for the most part, the objects, the grains of sand that were larger than the 2 millimeters were pretty uniformly white. You didn't see, if I wing back out here, you don't see a lot of variety in the same way that you did in a lot of other of our samples. I mean, I guess that's why they refer to it as sugar sand, because considering how uniform the color is, I could see how it is referred to as sugar sand. So it's a very refined form of sand, and at one time there were dozens of glass houses in the area, glass blowing houses. So they produced all kinds of glass, and part of it was the reason they produced the high quality glass was this sand was so fine and refined. Okay, so let me go back to full frame a minute, and we'll swing over to the polarizing. I did get my second camera in. So I've got a different camera on the polarizer. Well, it's not a different camera. It's a separate camera on the polarizer, but I have to tell it, say it bounces out, says that's gone, and then I got to tell it the new one is there. And all right, so let's go over to the polarizing microscope, and you'll see the effect that the polarizing light has on it. This is at 5x under polarizing light, and as you can see, the quartz crystals, even though they're from a different location, produce those beautiful colors that are a result of being refracting from their facets inside. So in any other light, this would be a clear grain, of crystal. Now, what was interesting to me is, or one of the things that I noticed about this is, I'm going to slide over where it's more dense in terms of the amount of sand grains. But as you'll see me pan across, the background color changes. And the reason is I have this in a Petri dish. so that I didn't have to put it directly onto the stage. And the Petri dish is actually responding to the polarized light. And it's showing these different colors as I swing across. Let me see if I can do this. You'll see it just go, it changes color. I'll come back, but I want to show you how it just kind of changes color as I move across. And it too is responding to the polarized light. So I just ordered today a quartz Petri dish, which should have a neutral effect in it. There are pieces of wood, small pieces of wood, about the sand grains that made it through. And again, this is sand that was sifted. This is the 2 millimeter sand. This is not the big stuff. And the reason is, if I put the big stuff under here, I think we would be too close on it. But it has a very nice look, and it looks great under the polarized light. As the light is being reflected from the facets in each of the grains of sand. But again, and I'm probably repeating this more than I have to, they're very uniform. They're very white, pretty white, and pretty divided equally between opaque and translucent. But very good looking grains of sand. Occasionally you see a rough one like this, right? That's had kind of a different life. It looks more like a pearl than it does a grain of sand. But they all have a very uniform look to them, that white sugar sand look. Let's go into the denser part of the, sample. So there's another piece of wood. Let me see. Once we get into the denser part, we won't see as many of the polarizing light colors because they're dense, they just don't allow it to refract off. But we do see colors other than on the white end of the spectrum. But what we see, of course, is colors that are all on the light end of the spectrum. There's not a lot of dark color in the sand, which is, like I said, why it's referred to as sugar sand. So I think what I'd like to do is, I didn't plan to do this, but I think I will. I'm going to put the larger objects, I'm going to move away from here, and I'm going to, I'll ask the forgiveness of how the colors are changing. And the reason is these cameras that are used for microscopes don't have the auto white balance feature. So it kind of, what I've noticed is that it just kind of scans around, picks a color it likes, and goes with that. So as I go here, you'll see it actually make some kind of change as it goes from that greenish thing that we saw before to a yellowish thing. So let me do one more thing before we go, and that is I'm going to remove this sample. Okay, if I do this, I'm going to go back to full screen for a minute, because if I do it, it's going to blind everybody. I'm going to remove that sample, which is the 2 millimeter sand, and I'm going to replace it with the much larger sand and see if it's small enough that we can actually see anything in it. Because these are pretty good size objects when it comes to a microscope. And I'll just do one of them. Let me see, get that in focus. All right. So this is 5x.
I can't see it.
Okay, sorry. So this is 5x under polarized light, and one of the objects that stayed inside the 2 millimeter screen. Now again, because this is stacked, I don't think we're going to see any refracted light. The polarizing colors off this. That's going to pretty much stay like that.
Looks like a bunch of yellow peeps.
Yeah, and again, these, as I'm looking at them, they're actually white. But because the microscope camera doesn't know what to do, there you see a little bit of color in that one. So the microscope camera doesn't have an auto white balance. So it just kind of picks something and goes with it, I've noticed. And it actually, this is a piece of software that enables me to use the microscope with a computer. And it does have some device settings. And I'll put these over here so you can see them. That include exposure, color, but in color they only include hue and saturation, image, color matrix, lens correction, etc. And I think what I'm going to have to do is go into this color matrix and I wonder what happens if I disable it. Ooh, this should be interesting. Okay. Don't know. So I'm going to have to play with it. The other thing that I will be able to do eventually is I'm going to be able to calibrate this so that I can measure it. I can measure it now, but it's because it's not calibrated, I can't do anything with it. So this grain is not 7.48 centimeters. 7.48 centimeters is almost 3 inches. So it's because I haven't calibrated it. But once I get it calibrated, we'll be able to look at some of these objects and measure them. So, but these, as I said, these are the bigger ones, and they do have a really good crystalline structure, and they're very consistent in their coloration. So, okay, the New Jersey Pine Barrens. So, do you want to open up the phones? Do we have any questions in the room?
Not really.
Periwinkles.
Not a whole lot going on. I think people are napping.
Oh, okay. It's that time of the day.
Nappy time of day.
Okay. All right. We have opened up the phones. We'll leave them open up for a couple of minutes. So if you have any questions about the Pine Barrens or what we showed you here today, I will be happy to talk about them for as much as I know. I talked to Andy and wrote Andy to see if he could make it in, but he's at work right now. So unfortunately, he couldn't be with us to talk about it. And that's why I felt like we needed to spend some time discussing the Pine Barrens. So in the description box below, you will find a link to the photo set that we prepared. And I'll put a link to this article. It's a Wikipedia article on the Pine Barrens, but it was interesting and very informative.
And long.
Yeah, it is several pages long. But I thought I'd better read it in preparation for today's show. Okay, so I think that's it for us today. Thanks for joining us. I hope
Maybe we should talk about the number 13, the Jersey Devil.
Oh yeah, read that. Have you got a lot? So read that one paragraph.
The Jersey Devil. The Pine Barrens gave rise to the legend of the Jersey Devil, said to have been born in 1735 to a local woman named Mrs. Leeds in an area known as Leeds Point. It was said that he was her 13th child, and because of the unlucky number, he was cursed. Another story says that the mother gave birth to a hideous monster that attacked her and her nurses before flying up and out of the chimney and disappearing into the barrens. Most alleged sightings of the legendary devil have occurred in or near the Pine Barrens. I guess it's kind of like the jackalope or the
like any other local thing. What was interesting is there was actually a show. It used to be, I think, on the History Channel, Discovery Channel, and it was like monster hunting. They'd go looking for Sasquatch, and they'd go looking for the Chupacabra. One of the shows actually had the Jersey. They went looking for the Jersey Devil. And what's really funny is they mostly scare the heck out of themselves.
Yeah.
They really do. So I wanted you to see it. I'm going to do this one last time. I'll switch over. This is under the polarizing microscope, and I found this one kind of bright red. It's more orange than it is red. And I guess it might fall into the garnet class, but it's one of the 2 millimeter grains that has this very nice color associated with it. It's real colorful. And that is not the result of the polarizing microscope. That's the actual color of that grain. So I thought you might like to see that. Okay, what?
Just interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I read it, so I was able to talk about it. But
850 species of plants.
Yeah,
Many are endangered.
if
And
you go through
orchids,
the numbers,
including the pink lady slipper,
Yeah.
is native to the Pine Barrens.
yeah, which you cannot pick.
Well, you have to go there to see it. Oh, Doug says the phone was busy. Did you turn it on?
He's calling the wrong number.
Oh. Ever hear the story about the Fugo Japanese balloon bomb?
And
Thanks for watching today, and we are here at the World Sand Project. I'm the magical sand genie, and I'm Shelley Carney. Yay!
yay, Shelley. And I'm Toby Younis. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you found today's show entertaining at least and educational at the best. So you learned something about the New Jersey Pine Barrens. We're going to take that approach from now on so that we can share some of this information from where these sand samples are coming from. Enjoy your day. We'll look forward to seeing you at 4 o'clock on the softer side, and then again at 7 o'clock on A Gypsy's Kiss.